This presentation, titled "The COVID Crisis Boosts Paywalls in Spain." Background. Faced with the realization that advertising revenue was insufficient and that only a small number of companies could live, most publishers began to think about alternative sources of financing, and payment for content emerged as the most viable option. It was a road full of ups and downs. It started timidly in a stage of experimentation until the year 2000, to immediately regress because bad experience. It was followed by high-profile test activity between 2001 and 2007. Only in a full phase, beginning in 2010, did it rebound, driven by the success of New York Times. The investigation has shown that, contrary to what happened in printed editions, whose demand has traditionally been inelastic, in digital media the demand has behaved in a rather elastic way, especially in the case of content offered by newspapers. The evolution from 2010 showed that not only were most people still not paying for news online, but it was unlikely that they would, according to Reuters' digital report. The global average of readers who pay for information online was 14%. Successive Reuters Institute studies show positive trends, although uneven behavior is observed. Globally, the circulation revenue of digital newspaper rose to $5,200 million in 2018, 28% of the turnover, according to the latest World Press Trends from the World Association of Newspapers. Spain experienced an uneven evolution with a final average of 11% of internet users who acknowledge having paid for digital information, according to the Reuters Institute. Both Germany and the United Kingdom showed relatively lower figures than Spain. In October 2018, El Mundo.ex, the second of the market, broke the trend in the sector and implemented a freemium model. The newspaper considered that good journalism was a remedy for the double challenge faced by modern societies: the disinformation that intoxicates the post-truth era and the essential reinvention of the business model of news companies in internet times. Paywalls in the COVID pandemic. 10 months after the start of the model, El Mundo.es announced that it had exceeded 50,000 digital subscribers to the current payment. Part of the result was due to the situation that occurred during the coronavirus pandemic. In the words of the deputy director of El Mundo, Vicente Ruiz, there was the highest peak of demand for information in the history of the Internet in Spain. In March 2020, the newspaper reached its all-time high by serving 900 million page views. In addition, inquiries to pay content experienced growth of 161% in the month, as of the declaration of the state of alarm in Spain. The newspaper was organized to focus the efforts of the newsroom to the informative coverage of the COVID. They received strong pressures to open the content and harsh criticism both on social networks and from the readers themselves, many of which were exchanged for messages of encouragement when the director responded and explained the reasons in a personalized way. The newspaper decided to keep the information of greatest public interest open and reserve for its subscribers the content with the most investment of talent, time, and effort from its best professionals. El Mundo.x publishing company interpreted that readers understood that it was worth paying for access to the stories with more depth and analysis. So the situation became an opportunity for the media with payment models. In the case of El Mundo.x, the growth of page views was accompanied by a 385% increase in monthly subscriptions. The newspaper understood a subscription conversion and retention plan. Actions for the conversion focus on content and an annual subscription offer at price 50% lower than the launching offer. In addition, retention showings were undertaken. As a result of the annual subscription offer that was launched on March 26, subscribers increased by 361% until April compared to February, and the total subscription portfolio increased by 178% in the period. The company interpreted it as a symptom that the newspapers stood as a reference at a time when Spanish society demanded better information and a critical sense. After the initial period of the paywall, in which the highest rated columnists attract to the payment method, the type of content that was most effective varied. The deputy director maintained that the opportunities where the reader's interest lies should be identified week by week, day by day. The deputy director reflected that the model examines the organization every day. When it has better topics, more subscribers are achieved. And if the reader's expectations are not answered during the test month, they are losses. It forces us to make a better product every day, he concluded. Vicente Ruiz described the new phase as decisive in the evolution of the business model. He said that we are at the moment of evolution of the model, but with the strength and growth so fast. El Mundo was a shock to the Spanish market. The COVID pandemic also had an impact on the leader elpaís.com, which had announced that it would start an internet subscription strategy 5 months after the presentation of the freemium model of El Mundo.x. The content charge went into effect on March 8. 20 days later, it was suspended due to the seriousness of the situation, and finally, the launch was complete on May 1, 2020. elpaís.com opted for the Metred model. Readers could access 10 articles a month for free. The price of the digital subscription was €10 per month, slightly higher than that of El Mundo.es, although the first month it was reduced to €1 with no commitment to stay. elpaís.com reported at the beginning of September 2020 that it had reached 64,200 exclusively digital subscribers. The favorable environment for paywall prompted the Vocento Group, which includes the largest net of regional newspapers in the country, to finally add to this type of incomes its emblematic ABC in October 2020, it also enjoyed the string of content changed the main regional newspaper in the country, first in Catalonia, lavanguardia.com. In this way, 8 of 10 most widely read general information newspapers operate under a subscription system. The estimate of Spanish pay-for-content market handled by El Mundo.ex publishing company was estimated at 300,000 people. In this way, elpais.com and El Mundo.ex accounted for 38% of the market. Conclusions. The good results of content search during the COVID pandemic are a sign of the adaptability of the main Spanish newspaper. Starting from the initial idea that digital content would be free, some newspapers experiment with a metered model, inspired by international trends, which they knew how to rectify by not obtaining the predictable results and after verifying that the assumptions on which the experience was based needed review. The initiative of El Mundo.ex encouraged similar projects in other Spanish newspapers as a result of the observation that the market was prepared for change. The COVID crisis seems to have accelerated the search for content in Spain. The situation has led to a market agreement which can help the model to settle and limit one of the most important reasons that readers put forward for not paying for content, that they could find it for free in other websites. In the new competition framework, all the media are interested in consolidating the model, and it can be expected that will do everything possible to take advantage of historical circumstances. Understanding the preference and attitude of users and how they develop can be essential for the survival of journalists. In this way, research on the underlying psychological mechanisms seems especially relevant, at the same time that the engagement strategy is presented as critical to facing the audience attention. The contest also reveals the notoriety of big data and the insight that the integration of data on behavior, interest in products, and purchase intentions provides.